Hello, friends. Welcome to Studio 850. I'm John Singley. Rick O'Connor, Sea Grant agent for the Escambia County Extension Service, is here with us this morning. We're on the shores of Bayou Tahar over on the east side of Pensacola. Rick recently published a report on water health in Escambia County for the past year. So we thought we'd bring him out here this morning and talk to him, share a little bit about what he learned with the water health in our county. Rick, good morning.
Good morning, John. How are you? Good morning, everybody.
Tell us about your report.
All right, this report was really focused on health advisories and the health advisory situation in the county, and has been for a few decades. It deals with fecal bacteria, basically. And bacteria getting into the waterways. They've been monitoring this for a long time. We've got county, state, and federal agencies that monitor this type of situation, not just here, but across the country. But bodies of water like this one here in Bayou Tahar have had high levels of fecal bacteria in it, and there is the potential of a health problem. So when those levels get high, they will issue health advisories. To do the sampling, the prices have come down, but relatively it's kind of expensive. People will always ask, do they sample this body of water every day, all week long, all the other ones? And the answer is no, just primarily of cost and or labor involved in doing that. So the Department of Health right now monitors 13 swimming area bodies of water in Escambia County where people swim. That's kind of been their focus since they got to zero in on a few things. And then at that point, they don't do each body of water equally. So places like Opal Beach, where they might be swimming in the summer, but they're not doing it in the wintertime, they're not going to be monitoring this time of year. Bayou Tahar is one of them that they monitor year round. And so when the Department of Health puts their report out, then what I do is I look at that information, who's had a health advisory, who hasn't, and then I sort of calculate the percent of samples taken, what percent of those required a health advisory. And what we have seen over the last decade is that in the lower part of the estuary, down towards Pensacola Beach, where most people are swimming, the percents are zero. It's rare, actually, that you see health advisories issued down there. Once an occasion, you'll see one. It's rare that it's more above 5. I don't know that I've ever seen it above 5%. So for the most part, it's been in the bayous. Bayou Tahar, Bayou Chico, Bayou Grande, where we've seen elevated percents. And when I have looked at from there, most of them are at 30% or above. So one of the things I've been trying to do over the last decade as a Sea Grant agent is educate the public about what is going on and then what they can do to try to help drop the problem.
Rick, what did you learn in the summary for 2022? How healthy is the water?
All right, well, what's interesting was this year in 2022, none of the bodies of water were at 30% or higher. And that's the first time in 10 years I've seen that. Usually Bayou Chico is elevated. A lot of times I will see anywhere from 40 to 50 or 60% of the samples require a health advisory. But this year it was like 28, it was below. So that's a good year, but that's one out of a 10-year cycle that we've been looking at. So you want to keep checking this. We will watch and see what happens this year.
So the health of to human health of the water bodies, what does it measure, like toxic chemicals or bacteria?
Yeah, what they're looking for is what we call fecal bacteria. These are bacteria that are in your large intestine and help break down the food that you eat. The term fecal bacteria is how they get into the environment. But these fecal bacteria are found in birds and mammals. So because it's in the body of water doesn't necessarily mean there's a health issue, because it could come from a variety. Birds go to the bathroom, so do all dolphins. Everything else goes to the restroom out here.
And dogs.
And dogs, yes, exactly. So what you look at is, all right, where are the normal levels running? And then the federal government and sometimes the state government will set benchmarks a little higher. And the assumption is if it gets to this level, that it may have more to do with humans than the animals. It doesn't mean it is. And actually now what they're doing is they're looking at tracers in this stuff that can actually detect things like asparagine, stuff that you find in Diet Coke, which we know the animals aren't drinking, but we're not there yet. I mean, they're slowly coming out with this stuff, and a lot of agencies are now using that. But the argument here is we look for what was called Enterococcus bacteria. That's one of the bacteria that you find in the large intestine that actually can tolerate salt water, because that was another issue several decades ago. Some of the bacteria they were monitoring as indicators actually die in salt water. So you would come out, take a sample, it's not there, the water's clean, but in fact it isn't. And again, these bacteria, these fecal bacteria in your digestive tract actually aren't toxic to you. It's used as an indicator. So if this is in fact human waste that's causing these high levels, then there's a strong possibility that there's some other pathogen that people, when they've gone to the restroom, it's in the water and may be unhealthy to be in it.
Rick, you hear a lot about water quality around here and the role that septic tanks and lack of sewer connections play. I think this came up recently in the Bruce Beach study that was done, the city commissioned.
Yeah.
What role does the septic tanks play?
Well, the septic tanks, again, we're going with the assumption now that these high levels are in fact humans. Where is it coming from, and what can the community do to reduce it? One target is septic tanks. Septic tanks, of course, were the norm. I grew up here on Bayou Tahar. Everyone had septic tanks, particularly over here on the east side of it. And what happens is that people don't maintain them. Septic tanks, if put in the right place and maintained properly, actually work pretty well. But a lot of folks aren't doing anything with them. And a lot of it has to do with what they're flushing down their drain and how much they're flushing down the drain. So that will actually dictate how efficiently the septic tank is working. And then you have the maintenance of it. Do they crack? People drive over them. They compact the sand. The way the septic is supposed to work is you flush the commode, it goes into the tank, there's bacteria and organisms that help break all that down, and then it goes through a series of pipes into a drain field, which should be relatively loose soil. But if you compact that soil because of activity you're doing on your property or driving over the drain field, then it doesn't work efficiently, and it's going to have to run off into a body of water.
You brought a prop with you this morning.
Yes.
Let's take a look at that. What is this, and why are we looking at it?
All right, this is ECUA's program they call FOG. That's fats, oils, and grease. I visited a sewer treatment facility, and now again, this kind of goes to even if you're not on septic and on sewer, there are what are called sanitary sewer overflows. And a lot of that has to do with, again, what we're throwing or pouring down the drain. I had a gentleman, a manager of a sewer treatment facility in Athens, Georgia, told me, if you can tell the public one thing, tell them please quit pouring bacon grease down the drain. And that's what this is all about. ECUA has dispensers around the county. One of them close to here is at Apple Market over on Scenic Highway. These things are in there. They're outside, kind of like the propane, the Blue Rhino type propane things. You open them up, there's an empty. You just take an empty. If you got a full, you put it in there, and this goes back and they recycle. Try to get as much out of this to use as biofuel. But if we can get the community to pour their bacon grease and any other fats and oils into this instead of the drain, that will extend the life and the effectiveness of your septic tank and the sewer. It will help the sewer.
Rick, one of the things that I noticed in your report was water health issues at Big Lagoon State Park.
Yeah, one of the things that's interesting at Big Lagoon over this last decade is we are also monitoring salinity. There's a big interest in this community to restore seagrasses and possibly even look at possibly restoring scallops. But the salinity has to be around 20 parts per thousand or higher. And one of the things we've noticed in the last decade is an increase in rainfall. Everybody saw what happened yesterday. It just continually rains. The average is now closer to 70 or 71 inches of rain. And so as that water flows down, we're monitoring the salinity to see if it is actually enough to impact the overall salinities in the bay. One of the things we've noticed over by Big Lagoon State Park is a drop in salinity there, which we have not been able to target, and we have seen a slight increase in health advisories over there.
And for the benefit of newcomers and people outside the county watching, Big Lagoon State Park is in the southwest portion of the county?
Correct. It's just across the Theo Bars Bridge from Perdido Key.
And you mentioned average rainfall at 70 inches.
Yes.
That's up, according to your report.
Yes, yes. It 10 inches higher annually by one fold.
So
yes.
in 10 years, we're receiving 10 inches on average more each year of rainfall. What What should we think about that, and how would that affect water health?
Well, there's a couple of things, which is what we're looking at, both with health advisories and salinity content in the bay, is that it's happening. And it's probably not going to stop anytime soon. Everybody saw what happened yesterday. So you've got increased rainfall, increased fronts, increased storms coming through the state of Florida in general, not just Pensacola. All of this is elevating that rainfall. But then the question is, what are we going to do with that rainfall? Naturally it would fall on landscapes and percolate through the soil and recharge the groundwater. But as we develop, of course, we're going to run into what we call stormwater. That water is going to collect on property, it's going to collect on streets, and then it's got to be, nobody wants it in their yard, so we got to figure out how to get it off. And the counties and the cities and the state governments are all looking at efficient ways of doing that.
So for the folks here who are boating and swimming and visitors who come down here who are concerned, where can they get information about the swimming beaches, the quality of the swimming beaches?
We've got a couple of places where it can be found. If you Google Florida friendly beaches, or healthy beaches, I'm sorry, Florida healthy beaches, the state of Florida's health department, they got it listed by cities. You'll see Pensacola, you can click that and it will give you the report. There's also the Escambia County Division of Land Management and Water Quality. They've got a new public portal where they're putting their information out and you can go on there and see.
Rick O'Connor, Sea Grant Agent for Escambia County Extension Service, has been our guest this morning. Rick, we're going to wrap it up here. Sure. Thanks for being out on this brisk January day here on Bayou Tahar in Escambia County. Any final words or thoughts for the folks about protecting their water and protecting themselves when they're in our water?
Sure, yeah, and I would say, with the health advisories, there's a lot of things the governments can do to try to help, and they have. I'll be honest with you, they've been doing a lot in the last decade. But for the private citizen, if you're on septic tanks, you can develop a septic tank maintenance plan. If you're not sure how to do that, contact the Extension Office, will help you do that. If you're interested or considering tying into a sewer system, let us know. We can help you get through that process. And if you're on a sewer system, I will tell you there's another issue that's going on in the community, particularly here in East Hill. Some of the lateral lines going from your commode to the sewer line are old, terracotta pipe, things like that. And the sewer system may be fine, but your lateral tie-in is not working properly. So if you've got questions or want to find out how to get that checked to see whether or not it's functioning properly, just contact us and we can help you with that as well.
On behalf of all of our audience throughout the Western Florida Panhandle, not just Escambia, we want to thank you, Rick, for all you and your colleagues over at the Extension Service do. We appreciate you being with us this morning.
Take good care.
Thank you,
everybody.